It is the middle of May, just May 21st, and I thought I'd give a very quick catch up, although anybody who watches my videos knows that I can never do this quickly. So we'll start here in the shade garden. Ostrich ferns are filling in nicely. Very happy this year to see my foam flower is blooming gloriously in the corner here and slowly starting to spread. I have some false Solomon seal that is flowering here and another patch of it over behind the wood poppies that's also flowering. Some wild leeks that are done, and a number of other violets and so on that are mostly finished flowering in the front. And I'm very pleased to see that things are slowly starting to fill in and spread. My trilliums, from my original 2 white trillium plants and 1 red trillium, the patch is slowly starting to spread. I see that I have had one come up in the back corner in front of all of that zigzag goldenrod, and I've got some volunteers coming up here and across on this side as well, little ones, so that's all very exciting. My giant bloodroot there growing with the clump of wild leeks is got nice large seed pods on it. And if we come around to this corner, last year the frost touched most of the plants when they were in flower, and so I didn't get any blooms on my mayapple. But this year I'm very excited that one of them has a flower on it, so I'll probably get some fruit this year. Oh, these ostrich ferns are always luscious, but they are rather aggressive spreaders. I have never planted any on that side of the path, and you can see they're coming up through there. At this end of the garden, which is the troublesome end, and by the way, all of those green things are maple seedlings that I haven't got around to weeding yet. I just came back from being away for a week, and everything is blooming and taking off, including all those. In here we've got some white baneberry growing there. I did have some blue cohosh, but it seems something has eaten it off or broken it off or dug it out, which often is the case here. The squirrels don't seem to like anything planted in this area here. Every time I plant something from goldenrod to cohosh to anything else, they dig it out right away. I even tried mulching heavily with leaves to see if that would discourage them, but still nothing coming up. I do have a jack in the pulpit right there coming up, so hopefully they'll leave it alone. And some more baneberry here, and back there I have my first baneberry flowering. So the flowers were out a week ago. This is red baneberry. And some giant blue cohosh tucked in the back. Over there we have, you can see that plant is false Solomon seal, and they do pop up around this garden quite a bit. My little spice bush, I haven't taken the time to see whether there's fruit on it. It was heavily loaded with flowers this spring. Let's discover it together. Oh, look at that. We have some berries coming. So we'll see how many of those we get this year. It had its first crop in quite a while last year. So nothing much happening around the pond. So we'll skip it and come over here. We have a dwarf chinkapin oak right here, which is beautifully laden with flowers, and it needs a second to produce acorns, I found out after several years of watching this flower with no fruit. And so last year I planted a second one down here, and there was no sign of life when I left, but lo and behold, there's some leaves coming, so I will have a second one here eventually. Down in this corner we have my green milkweed, which is coming along nicely. With all this stone around here, this always pops up much earlier than any of the others. And up on here I have a lot of volunteer wild columbine, but I love it so much I let it volunteer wherever it wants. And I've got some pussy toes in the front that are nicely spreading. And over here I have some purple prairie clover that is coming up again this year. And over there we have some butterfly milkweed. And behind it, that nice little clump was planted last year. That is fringed loosestrife. So it has a nice little yellow flower. Upper level view of the bog garden. My right here, that's my marsh marigold, which is all nicely going to seed. And in this spot right here, I dug out a bristly sedge, which had become too large and overpowering. And so in its place, I picked up a skunk cabbage yesterday from a supplier near Peterborough, and I will be planting that later today. Down in here amongst the ferns is my showy lady slipper. 2 original bulbs planted, and I now have 6 plants coming up, so that's exciting. I removed all of the chicken wire, and then I went away for a week, and as you can see the large dirt patch in here, that's because the squirrels decided that whatever I might have planted in there was worth digging out. And so they made a mess of it, but a couple of the ones I planted survived, including one of the fringe gentians I put in there, and another plant down here called ditch stonecrop. I have no idea why I wanted that, because apparently it'll spread, but if it gets too nasty, we'll just remove it. And also in this bed at this end are swamp milkweed, Riddell's goldenrod, and bog goldenrod. Down in front of me is the Ohio goldenrod. And a little bit of the bristly sedge that's self-seeded, so I'm going to have to get that out there. And as we move across to the back gardens, what you'll find popping up all over the place in this yard is this lovely little plant here with the gorgeous pink and yellow flowers. This is pale corydalis, or rock harlequin, and they're just self-seeded volunteers, as are those, I'm assuming, swamp milkweeds. In this corner we have some giants coming along. We've got giant sunflower, tall tick seed, etc. And some more of my pale corydalis volunteers. They're growing all along the edge of the path. In the center here I've got some stiff goldenrod, and the yellow giant hyssop is coming along nicely. My poor Canada lilies that the squirrels and the rabbits are insisting that I don't grow, because when the squirrels didn't dig them out, the rabbits ate them off. So I have one coming up here, one there, one over there, and a solitary leaf by that stake. They were all sending up beautiful shoots this spring till they got munched down. And on this side is Michigan lilies, the same fate. They were coming along great until the rabbits ate them off. Only one has managed to get past the single leaf stage. I've now applied Bobex to the plants, which, since we had rain this week, I'll have to redo. Over here I've got a few different goldenrods. I have showy goldenrod, hairy goldenrod, and blue stem goldenrod, which seems to love it here. And another one I'm excited about is my poke milkweed, which I've tried growing in another part of the yard, but it's never done well. And so it looks like we might actually even have flowers forming on these ones. These were just planted last year, and I'm thrilled to see them come to flower. And I've got some Culver's root in here, and on this side I've got a couple of rough stem goldenrods, and in the center I've got some white snake root there, and over on that side I have some sky blue asters, which looks like the rabbits have been giving a haircut again. Well, time to get weeding and spreading more bobecks. And I'm also thrilled about this. These are my wild blue lupines. Of the 3 plants, the squirrels left 2 of them, and they've come back this year and are looking really happy. My red bud, which looks really nice when you're up close, but it's a rather sparse tree. Lots of dead branches, which I'm going to try cleaning out this spring. And then this garden, I'm actually going to be digging this out this year and revamping this garden entirely. And I'm going to attempt over the next couple of years to make this into a wetland garden. On this side of the yard, this is my ostrich fern bed that I planted some Virginia bluebells, and they came up this spring and look glorious. And I'm excited to see that I have lots of seed pods forming. And I have a little visitor here. Lots of toads in my garden this year. And that makes me happy as well. My lady fern is doing well. I've got male fern, which is coming up. Last year the male fern got completely devastated either by raccoons or a cat fight back here. They were just completely flattened. Something was fighting in the middle of it, I'm sure. This is my fern garden, but I've got tons of volunteer jack-in-the-pulpits coming up through it as well. And this one I managed to pick up last year. Solitary leaf has come back, and this is my golden seal. Curious to see how that will come along. And what else is back here? In the back I've got obedient plant, which is not very obedient around here. It just grows where it wants to. Lots of sensitive fern, Christmas ferns. And another new one last year that has me pumped because it's doing so well is my twin leaf. Look at all those little babies. I did cover it well with chicken wire, which it's grown through, so I guess the chicken wire will stay. And over here, my glaucous honeysuckle, the squirrels completely smashed it down again this year, so I put the tomato cage around it, and I'm hoping that it'll grow up inside the cage so the squirrels won't break it so badly. And new for me this year are seed pods or fruit forming on my leatherwood. I am pretty excited about that. And I've got a few other things coming up back in here, a bit of waterleaf, Hydrophila canadensis, which is large leaf waterleaf, I think is the common name. A really good crop that's going to get thinned out today of Enchanters Nightshade, because it's encroaching on my bunchberry, which the squirrels and the rabbits also seem to not want me to have, because the squirrels dig it out, the rabbits eat it off. So this fall I'm going to make sure that I chicken wire that and see if third year that I actually get something growing. Lots of marsh ferns in the front here, and you'll see my soaker hose. I laid that down here this year because the last 2 years my leatherwood did not do well because it was so dry. Fortunately this year we've had a fair bit of moisture, so I haven't had to use it except once, but I'm going to leave it here since this is mostly ferns anyway. If it gets super dry, we'll just give it a shot of water. Some early meadow rue that blossomed earlier this year, and then I just bought some false nettle here, which I planted one here and one back by the cedars, but the squirrels completely destroyed that one. But they left this one alone. And if that comes along nicely, then I can take out these stinging nettles, which I leave really just for the butterflies. More Jack in the Pulpit volunteers coming up in the middle of the pathway as well. I dug a few out and gave them to my daughter last week. Over here, my red osier dogwood is starting to make some flower buds. This patch was solid with jewelweed, yellow jewelweed. So before I went away a week ago, I removed most of it and left 2 little patches, and we'll let that grow up. And no sign yet of the showy tick trefoil, which is supposed to be coming up by that little plant tag there. And the marginal wood fern is really struggling in this location. I may have to dig it out and find a better home for it. Over here I have a alternate leaf or pagoda dogwood, which I've had to trim back because it kind of grew out over my pathway. In the middle I have some more violets. Those are the sweet white violet. And I have a nicely caged now red buckeye tree that I got from Mathis Natvik a few years ago, and didn't cage it, so the squirrels keep breaking the tops off. So this spring I caged it after I saw that they did it again. In the back I have tall meadow rue and purple meadow rue, and in this little enclosure here I planted just before I left, and since they're fairly tall plants I needed the white fence to get the chicken wire up above it, but the plants already reached the chicken wire, so that's late figwort. It'll supposedly get 6 or 8 feet tall, which is nice against this back fence. I have what I'm assuming is another wild black cherry volunteer there, which will probably get dug up and potted up. Over here I've got black cohosh, which was growing too close to the trail last year, so I moved it. But that one, I missed it this spring because it was late coming up. Oh, and my maple-leafed viburnum has flower buds coming. Yay! And all of this down in here is a patch of zigzag goldenrod, which should be lovely this fall. We come over to this side of the path. I've got some American spikenard, which will get fairly large as well, and I have a volunteer dwarf hackberry, or not dwarf hackberry, northern hackberry, that's growing up in here, and I'm not sure what to do about it because they have really deep tap roots and even little ones don't transplant well. So it might just have to stay and compete with the maple. Down in the front I've got a cardinal flower, which is nicely coming back, and over here, more excitement in the garden, I have some yellow lady slipper, and it has 2 blossoms coming on it. Oh, 3 blossoms on it. 4 blossoms on it. Holy smokes, it's doing really well. It obviously likes it. And then just before I went away a week ago, I planted, ouch, I just stepped on a stake in my bare feet. I planted some fringed gentian down in here, so that's nicely protected, and hopefully it'll get established so the squirrels will leave it alone. Oh, I am just very excited about my yellow lady slipper. That's cool. All right. Oh, between orioles and cardinals, I'm getting a nice serenade out here. Oh, that is not. That is a Carolina wren that's doing that chirping. That's cool. You can see them up in the tree branch. On this side we have an overgrown patch of buttercup ranunculus, something, I forget the Latin name for it because I don't have a sign for it. Anyway, it's kidney leaf buttercup. And over here is a very aggressively spreading patch of star-flowered Solomon seal. Lovely flowers on them. And pretty soon this will be a sea of white. But I will be thinning it out because there are other things growing in the middle there that need to have some space. Although my giant Canada lilies have already shot up above it. Last year there was one. Now there's at least 3, and I think there's 2 small ones down at the base as well. So if they show off like they did last year, that should be great. And interestingly, all of these stakes along here had plants growing up in front of them last year. Every other one was lance leaf coreopsis, and the ones in between were butterfly milkweed. And yet absolutely nothing has come up in front of any of them except at the very end some butterfly milkweed, which is doing well. So I would have thought the rest would be up too. No idea why it's not. And then we have a volunteer elderberry growing here, and if I remember right, there's another one, little one growing back in there. Another bit of excitement. So some new flowering spurge that I came home to find that the squirrels had dug out, but it's obviously tough because it didn't even slow it down. But here's what's exciting also is another patch of, if I can get it focused, there's flower buds coming on my wild blue lupine, growing in amongst my little blue stem grass and whatever this grass is here that is growing out of a patch of what was supposed to have been little blue stem. Oh, and another bigger toad at this garden. And that's most of the excitement for now. This garden was heavily thinned and weeded before I went away. Needs a little more work. The green-headed coneflower is already waist high or more, and the false sunflower is spreading beautifully. Back in here is white flat-topped aster, and along the back is some Virgin's Bower clematis. We've got some bee balm down in the front. I've got to get some more digging done in here because I have Virgin's Bower clematis coming up in the middle, which I don't want. Over here are my wild black currants, and the light will allow us to see it. It is loaded in blossoms, so I hope the bees are busy. I'd love to get some. Virgin's Bower clematis here. Giant cup plants that reached 10 feet tall last year, or almost 10 feet, I guess, 9 foot 10. And wild bergamot and more bee balm. That's mostly it, I guess, that I can show this morning. So hopefully that was a fun tour and wasn't too long. A little bit of everything coming up. This is such an exciting time of year for me. Maybe next time there'll be some more things in flower that we can look at.